friends, how are you? It's Miss Cianciola. Last time you heard the 7th chapter of one of the books from the Puppy Place series, Mocha. Do you remember what happened so far? Let's see if we can recall what we have already read. Take a moment to think about who the most important characters are, where the setting is that they are in, and the most important event that we left off at. Do you remember? Go ahead and tell me. Charles Peterson is traveling with his parents, his sister Lizzie, his brother the Bean, and his dog Buddy. They are visiting Charles' Uncle Stephen, Aunt Abigail, and his cousins Becky and Stephanie. They are there for Thanksgiving. A stranger came and dropped off a dog who they named Mocha. When they took her to the vet, they found out that she does not have a microchip to help them figure out who her owners are. That means they will have to find a different way to figure out who those owners are or help a new family adopt her. Becky and Charles are also on a mission to find out who lives in the large mysterious house down the street. But a storm just started. Uncle Stephen went to the store for the lemons that Becky and Charles forgot to get. But he hasn't returned. When we finished chapter 7, I was left wondering where Uncle Stephen was and if he's okay. What are you wondering? Let's see if we can get our questions answered. Aunt Abigail paced up and down the kitchen, a worried look on her face. Every so often she picked up the phone and listened, then put it back down. I haven't heard the sanding truck go by, she said. Maybe Stephen is just waiting until they've sanded the roads. That ice can be awfully slidey to drive on until they've spread the sand or salt over it. She nibbled at a fingernail. It's weird, though. Usually the local road crew's on top of everything. They take great care of our roads, whether it's a holiday or the middle of the night or whatever. Normally, Neil would have driven the town's big truck up and down our road at least a couple times. I'm sure everything is fine, Charles' mom spoke in the soothing tone she used when the Bean was upset about something. You know Stephen, he's just hanging out down there cracking jokes while he waits until it's safe to drive, that's all. Betsy's probably right, said Charles' dad. But, he glanced at Mom, I'm starting to feel as if I ought to go check things out. If there's been some sort of emergency, I can help. I have my first aid kit in the van. Mom frowned. How can you possibly drive on these roads? I can't, admitted Dad. I was planning to walk. I have those ice gripper thingies. I can attach them to my shoes. It's still dangerous to be on the road, said Aunt Abigail. What if a car comes along? They may not be able to stop in time if they don't see you. You could go on the back way, said Becky. That would be even easier, because you can crunch through the layer of snow in the woods and fields. Dad nodded. That sounds good, but I've never gone that way. We'll show you. Becky jumped up. Mocha scrambled out from under the table, ready for action. Charles and I took the path yesterday. I know it really well. Charles held in a groan. He was not exactly excited about going out into this yucky weather. Once again, Becky was pushing him past his comfort zone. Dad thought about it for a moment. Okay, he said finally. I suppose it's not a bad idea to have a few people go, so that someone could come back with a message if we need more help. Or, he added quickly, when Aunt Abigail's face fell, to tell people back here that everything's all right. Charles and Becky found their hats and gloves and put on their boots and jackets. Buddy was still curled up by the stove and barely lifted an eyelid, but Mocha pranced around, waving her curly tail and making eager dashes toward the door. Why don't you take her with you? Mom asked. She needs to get outside at some point and burn off some of that puppy energy. Aunt Abigail found 2 more pairs of ice gripper thingies, and Becky showed Charles how to stretch them over the bottoms of his boots. Too bad we don't have any for Mocha, Becky said. Good thing she has toenails. Mocha's toenails didn't do her much good when she headed out the back door at full blast, only to go sliding off the porch and onto the crusted snow in the yard. But she picked herself up and shook herself off, her tail still wagging. She gave Charles a doggy grin. That was kind of fun. Better than lying around all day anyway, she thought. Dad inched his way to the van and grabbed his first aid backpack. He slung it over his shoulder, and they set off. It took a while to get down the icy driveway. They walked along the sides where the crunchy snow did give a little traction. But Charles could tell that one wrong step, even with the grippers, would mean a slippery, sliding fall. The rain had stopped. A thick glaze of ice covered every branch of every tree. Their limbs drooped sadly. Some large branches had broken under the heavy weight and lay scattered on the snow and in the driveway. Still, Charles thought it was beautiful, in a weird way. A bush covered with red berries, each one encased in ice, made a splash of color against the gray sky. The ice glittered even in the low light, and when the wind blew, you could hear the musical sound of 1,000 ice-covered branches rattling against each other. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Mocha led the way as they inched across the silent, empty road and found the beginning of the path through the woods. Fallen branches littered the ground, and Charles glanced up nervously as the trees above them creaked and swayed. "Sure looks different today," he said. He wondered if Becky would have a hard time finding the way. Dad touched Charles on the shoulder. "Okay there, sport?" "I'm fine." Charles reached down to pet Mocha, who walked by his side, picking her way through the snow. She glanced up at him happily, and he felt better. He had his new friend with him, and if Mocha wasn't worried, why should he be? Becky moved confidently, following what was left of the path. Charles recognized a few landmarks, a big boulder, an old spreading tree near a stone wall, a stream that trickled between snowy banks. After about 10 minutes in the woods, they came out into a field and crunched across the undisturbed snow. Then Becky veered toward a group of tall pines, now drooping under their icy coating. "Almost there," she told Dad. A few moments later, Mocha pricked up her ears as they emerged from the pine grove. She pointed her nose toward a group of buildings that had come into view. Charles recognized the store. They'd made it! But something looked different. As they got closer, Charles realized what it was. The towering maple tree that shaded the store's porch in summer had toppled across the road. One of its huge branches had smashed right through the windshield of Uncle Stephen's car. Dad hiked his first aid backpack up onto his shoulders and began to run. "Stay back here," he called over his shoulder to Becky and Charles. "Keep Mocha out of the way and steer clear of any power lines that have fallen." He sprinted toward the store, crunching through the snow. Well, it turns out that Uncle Stephen is just fine at the store with the lemons. But his car's windshield did get broken from one of the large trees that fell down from all of the ice in the storm. Now I'm wondering, how are they going to get his car fixed? And will they get back home safely? What are you wondering? Well, I hope you enjoyed Chapter 8 today, friends. Tune in again to find out what happens next.